Okay, so imagine this for a second. You're a historian. You're trying to reconstruct a world that existed, what, 1,400 years ago? You don't have video, no audio recording, certainly no cloud storage.
Right.
What you have are people, living, breathing, forgetful, biased, wonderful people. Now imagine one of those people is essentially a human hard drive.
Okay.
And he's carrying over 1,500 files of data in his head. Data that will decide how you pray, how you marry, how you do business, even who should rule your empire.
That is a staggering amount of responsibility for one person to carry.
Right. And today we are diving into the life of that human hard drive. We're talking about Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. And look, if you're listening to this, you probably know the name. He's a giant. But we aren't just doing a standard biography today. We're doing something a bit different. We are looking at Jabir as a data set.
A data set that is heavily contested, I might add.
Exactly, because here's the hook. Jabir isn't just a narrator, he's a bridge.
The bridge, yeah.
He lives through the time of the Prophet, through the first 4 caliphs, and deep into the Umayyad dynasty. He dies at like 94 years old.
It's an incredible lifespan.
He spans the entire formative century of Islam. And because he lived so long and said so much, he became a battleground.
It really is the perfect description. I mean, you have Sunni scholars who view him as this reliable pillar of the Sunnah.
That's a bedrock.
Then you have Shia scholars who see him as a loyal secret keeper for the Prophet's family. And then you have the modern historians, the skeptics, looking at him and asking, wait a minute, how does one blind old man remember 1,500 legal rulings, some from when he was just a kid?
It's a mess, but a fascinating one. So our mission today is to unpack how this single man's memory became the contested ground for theology, for law, and for history. So let's start with the basics. Who was the man behind all these numbers?
So to ground us, Jabir was from the Khazraj tribe in Medina, specifically the Banu Salama clan. And his story, it really starts with tragedy. His father was martyred at the Battle of Uhud.
Which is a pivotal moment in early Islamic history.
Absolutely crucial. And Jabir was young. He missed the Battle of Badr, and he likely didn't fight at Uhud because his father left him behind. And the reason is, it's a very human one. Jabir had 7. Some sources even say 9.
9 sisters.
I know.
That is a full house.
It is. And his father basically told him, look, I can't leave these girls alone. You have to be the man of the house. So while history is being made on the battlefield, Jabir is essentially babysitting.
So he's an insider, a Medinan, but he's observing from the domestic sphere, not the front lines.
For those early years, yes. But he definitely catches up.
Oh, he does.
Oh, yeah. He participates in 19 battles later on. But the key statistic here is his age. He accepts Islam around age 7. He witnesses the Pledge of Aqaba at 16, and he dies in the year 78 AH, which is roughly 697 CE.
That is just a massive stretch of time.
It is.
He's like a living time capsule. I mean, he's walking around in the era of the Umayyad kings, telling them stories about how the Prophet used to eat dates.
Precisely. And that longevity is where the first real controversy starts, what we can call the memory problem.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Jabir narrates incredibly detailed legal rulings from events like Badr or Uhud, but you just said he was a kid, or not even there.
Right. So skeptics and some Orientalist scholars, names like Joseph Schacht or Johann Ball, they look at this and they say, this is impossible. They argue this is a classic case of back projection.
Meaning, what, later generations made up a rule and then just slapped Jabir's name on it to give it authority?
That's exactly it. They argue Jabir became a kind of peg to hang legal ideas on. If you wanted to validate a ruling in the year 700, you attribute it to the man who lived almost a century. It's a way of giving a new law an ancient pedigree.
But the traditional Sunni defense is pretty straightforward, isn't it? It has to do with oral culture.
Correct. The argument is that he didn't have to see it to narrate it. In Hadith methodology, a companion narrating from another companion is fine. So Jabir likely learned these details from older family members, from his father before he died, or other veterans. He's synthesizing the community's memory.
Ah.
He's not always claiming, I saw this with my own 2 eyes, but more, this is what happened.
So it's less about him having a photographic memory of being a 9-year-old at Badr, and more about him being the archivist of his tribe.
That's a very good way to put it. He collects the stories.
Yeah.
But even if we accept he's honest, we have to talk about the camel.
The camel hadith. This is probably my favorite example of how messy memory can get.
It's a classic case study. They teach it in every Hadith seminar.
So for anyone listening, the story is simple. Jabir is on a journey, his camel is tired, it's slow, and the Prophet offers to buy it from him, but lets Jabir ride it home to Medina. Seems simple, right?
The core event is simple. But if you look at the sources, Bukhari, Muslim, you name it, there are dozens of variations. Yeah. In one version, the price is 1 ounce of gold. In another, it's 4 dinars. In another, there's a condition that he keeps the camel's head. In yet another, the condition is different.
So if I'm a skeptic, I look at this and I say, see, they can't even agree on the price. It's all just fluid storytelling. It's folklore, not history.
That is the skeptical view, yes. But the traditional scholars have a term for this, ruwaya bil mana.
Transmission by meaning.
Exactly. They argue the legal point that the Prophet bought the camel and allowed a stipulation, that's the data. Well, that's just human noise. Does it really matter if it was 4 dinars or 5?
It matters if you're an accountant, I guess, but maybe not if you're a theologian.
Right.
But this gets trickier because Jabir went blind in his old age.
Yes, and this is a major vulnerability in his data set. He spent his last years teaching in the Prophet's mosque, totally blind. He couldn't see who was sitting in his circle. He couldn't verify the notes people were taking.
But wait, I mean, that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It's a huge risk.
Yeah, what's stopping some, unscrupulous student from just making something up and saying, oh yeah, Jabir, you just told me this?
That's the nightmare scenario. And traditional critics, they acknowledge this. So they focus heavily on his students. For example, Abu Zubair al-Makki.
Right.
He's a famous student of Jabir. But a scholar like Bukhari treats him with a lot of caution. They ask, did you hear this directly? Or are you just attributing it? Was this before or after he lost his sight?
So the system has its own, quality control. It tries to self-correct.
It tries. But it admits that a blind narrator living to 94 is a high-risk source.
Okay, so we have a blind, super-aged narrator who is this massive source of data. Now I want to move to where it gets really interesting, the sectarian battleground. Because Jabir isn't just a Sunni figure, is he?
No, not at all. And this is where we have to put on our hermeneutics hats, how we interpret texts. Because both Sunnis and Shias often accept that Jabir said the words. They fight to the death over what the words mean.
Okay, let's take the big one, Ghadir Khumm.
The big one. The event where the Prophet stopped the caravan, lifted Ali ibn Abi Talib's hand. Jabir is a primary narrator. He reports the Prophet saying, Man kuntu malahu fa'ali malahu.
Whomever I am, his malal, Ali is his mallah.
Right, now if you're a Shia listener, Jabir is witnessing the coronation of Ali. Mala here means master, leader, successor. Jabir is the loyal witness to the explicit designation of the Prophet's family.
But to a Sunni listener, reading the exact same words.
To a Sunni, relying on the same Jabir narration, Mullah means friend, ally, supporter. They argue the context was about settling a dispute Ali had with some soldiers, not about transferring political power.
That's just incredible. It's the same exact data point.
The exact same words.
And you get 2 completely different graphs from it. But it gets even deeper with the tablet, right? The Hadith law.
Oh, this is a fascinating divergence. In 12-verse Shia tradition, Jabir is a secret keeper. The story goes that he visits Fatima, the Prophet's daughter, and sees a tablet, a law emerald green, shining with light. And on it are the names of the 12 imams.
The names, explicitly listed.
Explicitly. And Jabir supposedly copies it down. For Shias, this is the smoking gun of legitimacy. But if you go to the Sunni corpus,
it's not there.
It's gone, completely absent. Sunni scholars argue, look, if Jabir, a major public figure, had a list of 12 names, why was there total confusion about succession for centuries?
Right, why did the Shia themselves split into different sects if they had a list?
Precisely. They classify this as a fabrication, a later invention put into Jabir's mouth to settle later disputes.
So either Jabir was holding back the most important political document in Islamic history, or someone engaged in some creative writing 100 years later using his name.
That's the dilemma. And then you have the legal wedges, like muta, temporary marriage.
Oh boy. This one is always controversial.
It is, and Jabir's right at the center of it. There's a narration in Sahih Muslim, a Sunni book, where Jabir says, and I'm paraphrasing, we practiced mut during the time of the Prophet and Abu Bakr until Umar forbade it.
Wait, he says until Umar forbade it. So if I'm just looking at that text, it sounds like the Prophet didn't ban it. Umar did.
And that is exactly the Shia argument. They use Jabir to say, see, God made it legal, a caliph changed the law, therefore it's still legal.
But Sunnis consider Jabir a pillar of their tradition. How do they handle that?
They do what you might call a workaround. They argue Jabir was simply unaware.
Unaware.
They say the Prophet did ban it, maybe at Khaybar or Mecca, but the news just hadn't reached Jabir yet. Or that Umar was simply enforcing a ban that people had forgotten about.
It really shows how you can bend a narrator to fit the legal framework you already have. Jabir is the raw material, but the schools of law are the architects.
That's a beautiful way to put it. He provides the bricks, they build different houses.
Speaking of building houses, let's talk about the foundation, reality itself. We live in a world of science, of biology, but Jabir's narrations, they sometimes go places that make modern rationalists a bit uncomfortable.
We are definitely entering the realm of El-Haib, the unseen and the miraculous. And yes, Jabir narrates some things that are distinct.
Okay, let's just say it.
Go on.
The jinn eating bones.
Chuckles. Yes, Jabir narrates that the Prophet said, "Bones are provisions for your brothers among the jinn."
Now, if I'm a biologist, I'm looking at a bone and saying, no, that's calcium and collagen. Microbes might eat it, but invisible fire beings.
And this creates a huge tension for the modern believer. You have one camp that tries to find enzymes in the bone to prove it, but then you have the traditionalist who says, stop, this is the unseen. It doesn't have to fit your biology textbook.
And then there's the camel urine.
The famous medicinal narration. Jabir reports people drinking it for sickness.
Which, again, modern hygiene standards would flag as a biohazard.
Exactly. So the reformist or modernist view here is often, look, this was 7th century Arab culture. It was the medicine available. It's not divine law. They try to separate the prophet's culture from his revelation. But Jabir doesn't make that distinction. He just reports what he saw.
And he saw miracles too, food multiplication.
The Battle of the Trench. Jabir invites the prophet for a small meal, and suddenly hundreds are eating from a single pot.
Skeptics call this legend building. It's the Jesus feeding the 5,000 motif. It appears in every religion.
It does. And his historian might say, this is how a community glorifies its founder. But for the believer, this is mujiza, proof of prophethood. And Jabir is the eyewitness. If you throw out Jabir's miracle story, you start dismantling the whole supernatural element of the faith.
Which brings us to an even harder clash, ethics. Because moral values change too, and Jabir has narrations about slavery and women that they're tough for the modern ear.
They really are. Jabir narrates openly about asal coitus interruptus practiced with enslaved women.
So basically using them for sex, but trying to prevent pregnancy.
Yes, and the narration is so matter of fact. We did this while the Quran was being revealed.
Meaning, if God had wanted to stop it, he would have sent down a verse.
That's the clear implication. So how does a modern Muslim who believes in universal human rights reconcile this? The reformist argument is that Jabir is describing a historical reality that Islam was trying to gradually phase out. But the text itself, it's just raw. It shows a world where slavery was the norm.
It reminds us that Jabir wasn't a 21st century liberal activist. He was a 7th century Arabian tribesman.
Exactly. And demanding he be anything else is anachronistic. But it creates a massive hermeneutical challenge for people today.
So we've covered memory, sex, science, and ethics. But there's one shadow looming over all of this: politics. Jabir didn't live in a vacuum. He lived under the Umayyads.
A dynasty that, let's be honest, wasn't exactly friendly to the family of the Prophet.
So did they get to him? Did political pressure shape his data set?
That is the million-dollar question. Critics suggest that the vast literature of Fidel narrations praising certain companions might be back-projected to please the Umayyad courts. Hey, narrate something good about so-and-so to legitimize our rule.
But Jabir wasn't exactly a courtier, was he?
No. In fact, there are reports he was treated very harshly. Some sources say he was poisoned by Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, the ruthless Umayyad governor.
Being poisoned usually suggests you weren't doing what the government wanted.
That's the point. It suggests resistance. So his defenders argue his integrity remained intact, but there is a silence that is just deafening.
The calamity of Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah.
The prophet is on his deathbed. He asks for a pen and paper to write a document so the community won't go astray. A dispute breaks out.
Yeah.
Some say he's delirious. Others say, give him the pen. He eventually kicks everyone out.
And Jabir was around for this.
He was alive. He was in that inner circle.
Yeah.
But his reports on this they're ambiguous. He never clarifies what the prophet intended to write.
So, is that just him being cautious, or maybe he was genuinely confused?
Or, and this is the big one, is it suppression? Did he know something he couldn't say, or did nobody really know? That silence is where historians and theologians project all of their own theories. If Jabir had just said he wanted to write X, history could be completely different. but he didn't.
And maybe that's the point. Jabir isn't an encyclopedia with a perfect index. He's a witness. And witnesses see fragments.
And witnesses are reconstructed by those who listen to them.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at Jabir the man, the memory, the battleground.
I think Jabir functions as a mirror. If you go to him looking for the guardian of the Sunnah, you'll find him. If you go looking for the secret partisan of Ali, you find him too. If you go looking for the evolution of oral tradition, well, you find that as well.
He reflects the anxieties of whoever is looking at him.
Perfectly put. The deep dive here isn't just about whether Jabir had a perfect memory. It's about asking how we know what we know. Does the existence of contradictory truths in one man's legacy break the system? Or does it, maybe, prove the richness and complexity of the tradition?
That's the question. And I want to leave you with one final thought, something to chew on. We often think of memory as a video recording. You just hit play. But modern science tells us memory is reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you rebuild it.
You change it slightly, every time.
Exactly. So if we accept that, how much of the Jabir we have today is the actual man? And how much of him is, the collective memory of the community that loved him, that needed him, and sort of rebuilt him over a century?
That is a provocative thought.
Thanks for diving in with us.
No pleasure.
See you next time.